particular edition is brought to us by Sauti Plus in partnership with Reach a Hand Uganda and Light for the World. Please don't forget, we are on SoundCloud. Follow us on our SoundCloud account, our SoundCloud podcast. We are Sauti Podcast. So thank you very much. Today, our topic is going to be disability inclusion in the performing arts. Today, I have amazing speakers who are very passionate about disability inclusion, and they are advocates of disability inclusion. So, like I said, today we are talking about disability inclusion in the performing arts, in music, in film, and in different categories of the performing arts. So over time, we've seen society portraying persons with disabilities as people who are not capable, people who don't have the potential to do certain things. And yet there's a lot of talent, there's a lot of potential that we have among persons with disabilities. And this could even be due to lack of awareness. People don't know or are not aware about, the capabilities of persons with disabilities. And I know there are a lot of interventions, a lot of advocacy efforts that we are doing or that are being done to ensure that there is inclusion in the performing arts. So today, our podcast is mainly going to highlight disability inclusion in the performing arts. So my name is Victoria Miracle Chemtai. I'm a programs officer, disability inclusion, and also community engagement at Reach a Hand Uganda. I'm very happy to be your host today. And I will let you, our dear speakers, introduce yourselves. We'll start with Derek.
Oh, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for inviting me to this podcast. I'm so happy to be here. I'm called Ankunda Derek. Yeah. And I'm an actress.
Thank
I
you
also
very
work
much.
with Light for the World as a disability inclusion facilitator.
We are happy to have you, Derek. And welcome to today's edition of the Sauti podcast. Let's have Emily.
Hi everyone. Hi Vicky. Thank you for having me. My name is Emily Nirinjie. I'm the Communications and Information Officer with Light for the World.
Thank you very much, Emily. You're welcome. Yes, Humphrey.
Yeah, my name's Humphrey Nabimanya, aka that. I'm happy to be on the Sauti Plus.
AKA, please tell us.
Yes. No, I'm just really happy to be on the Sauti Plus podcast, and also looking forward for the topic that is going to be discussed today. Also, the team leader, Reach a Hand Uganda. And so I'm happy to be here.
You are very welcome, Humphrey, to today's episode of the Sauti podcast. We are happy to have you. Yes, please, let's have you introduce yourself.
Oh, hello. I'm so happy to be here. I'm a sign language interpreter assisting Derek.
Your name, please?
I'm Nyamwiza Hope.
Good to have you, Hope, to today's podcast. So, like I said earlier on, we are going to talk about disability inclusion in the performing arts. And recently, Rahu, together with different partners, premiered the When You Become Me feature film. So I'll start with you, Humphrey. So tell us about the When You Become Me podcast. What is it all about, and what story does it portray?
First of all, the When You Become Me feature film is a story that touches everyone's heart. And also looking at the issues that the When You Become Me film is addressing, those are issues that are not looking at person with disabilities, but also looking at any other person that is living in different communities, looking at job discrimination, looking at sexual harassment that also happens at a workplace environment, but also looking at that even if we are living with these issues, we are looking at persons with disabilities that are quite really affected by the issues that everyone really goes through. So When You Become Me, it's something that is looking at you. If you become me, you can now understand the shoes that I'm putting on. And you can understand every day when I wake up, the community that is around me, how I go through a lot of discrimination, at my family, at my workplace, at a school, for example. And also me advocating to be inclusive in everything that you're doing. If it comes to a job promotion, look at me as a person as well and be able to treat me equally like any other person. Look at my abilities and what I can deliver, but don't look at my inabilities because thinking that they can hinder me to deliver, and yet me as a person I have more abilities to even to do what I'm meant to do. So when you become me, it portrays a lot of that, a lot of those issues. And also the sentiments that we get in is that we are all affected in different way or the other. We are all living with a disability. It might not be physical, but it's within us. There are things that we have to understand that if we want to live in a very equal community, we all contribute to each other. We all support each other. So we have to appreciate and accept who we are in whatever way that we live in our different communities.
Thank you very much, Humphrey. Amazing, amazing stuff. Honestly, when you become me is one of its kind when it comes to the entertainment industry in Uganda. And to our dear listeners and our dear viewers, those who are watching us right now, when you become me is soon going to be in the cinemas. So let's look out for this amazing feature film. It has a lot of content, a lot of infotainment that you shouldn't miss. So speaking of a feature film, so Dorek, you introduced yourself as an actress. So I would like you to take us through the journey of the performing arts in the Ugandan industry.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. Truly, Uganda has more than 500 performing art industries. So that's why we are here. Here in Uganda, we have more than 500 performing arts industries, and most of them are not inclusive. They are not inclusive for persons with disabilities. So now we want to sensitize the people that there must be inclusion in the performing arts. We must have inclusion in the performing arts because they must include the disabled people in Uganda in the performing arts. So I would like to, that's why I say that there are more than 500 performing arts industries in Uganda, and they are not really inclusive. People with disabilities are not seen anywhere. When they're implementing a project or something, they do not include persons with disabilities. We need to see inclusion in each and every industry in the performing arts. Yeah, so that's all I would say about that.
Okay, thank you very much, Dorek. Talking of inclusion in the performing arts, and there's still a very big gap. So, to you, Emily. So, how can we use the performing arts as an advocacy tool or as a tool of awareness, especially when we are looking at the fact that there's still a lot of stigma in the performing arts around persons with disabilities in Uganda?
Thank you very much, Vicky. And just like I'll say Derek said, there's still a big gap. But I'm glad, like even we've used When You Become Me. It's one of the first ventures that we at Light for the World, in partnership with Richer Hand, have been able to use to, reach out to different audiences. And from the performing arts, everyone loves, I'll say, entertainment. Entertainment is key for everyone's lives. But how inclusive is it? We have seen different people, different movies, get acted, even songs. We've had people who are able-bodied take up the space for people that would have, for the person with disabilities. We've had even right from, Hollywood itself. You see in the previous movies, I'll say like, Forrest Gump, that's just what comes off my head. Someone who is able-bodied taking up a sport for someone with a disability. So there you ask yourself, have we been so intentional in even seeking out people with disabilities to take up their roles? That is one of the questions we had to ask ourselves when we were in this process of making When You Become Me. So we want people to embrace people with disabilities in every space of life, not just economic empowerment, not just in employment, because even the performing arts are a source of employment for each and everyone that's ventured into it. So how can we use this? The performing arts, it's creating the space, being intentional in, as we look for all these ventures, you come up with a creative idea, like, let's make a movie. Let's be intentional in creating scenes, in creating roles for people with disabilities, and even involving them. Because we've had in the process, I can take us back to the process when we were in the auditions calls and the casting calls for When You Become Me. We were intentional in having people with disabilities take up specific roles, and we had a very big turn up. I've also seen these ventures with Richer Hand, the Sauti Canvas. These are all places we have seen people with disabilities take up, with one heart. So I think it comes down to all of us to know that you see a disability, but what more? Like, it's the person before the disability. They can do even more than we think they can do. We've seen them do even more. So I think we just need to be intentional as organizations, as individuals, in creating these spaces for people with disabilities, because just as we have passions, they also do have passions. And we have seen them shine through. So why not take that chance on them like you would take a chance on any other person or even yourself? I would say that's the best way that we can go about it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Emily, for the insightful points that you've shared. So, what I take from what you've just shared is it's imperative to look at the individual as opposed to looking at the disability first.
Exactly.
Look at
Yes.
the person first.
Yes.
So to our dear listeners and our dear viewers, something to take note of or a take home is, don't look at a person with a disability and, judge them by their disability. Let's look at an individual first, then the rest comes later. Yes, thank you very much. And speaking of being intentional about creating scenes around inclusion or around persons with disabilities. Rahu has been like a role model when it comes to inclusive arts. So, Humphrey, I would like you to tell us what role has Rahu played in promoting disability inclusion, especially in the film and the performing arts?
Ro has played a very significant role, and know that we are still on that same journey in terms of putting person with disabilities at the forefront. But even before they get into performing arts and acting roles, we have also to look at the leadership and governance.
Sure.
And it's something that I cannot really leave out, that Rahu has demonstrated that at the leadership level in terms of having person with disabilities represent us at the board from inception, actually, of Rahu, and also having person with disabilities to be included in terms of creating aspirations for other young people. For years, we've been moving, for example, with Dr. Naboth. We have been having, Dr. Naboth is now a professor and a doctor at Makerere University. We've been having Deus from Standard Chartered Bank that has been part of Rahu for almost 10 years. And these are the inspirations that we have gathered over the years. And now the time we started also working with Light for the World, already we were on that journey when we were moving. And so we had to co-create more ideas on how we can be able to have a more inclusive programming into the work we're doing. Then our Peer Educators Academy was one of the venture that accommodated peer educators that are living with disabilities. But they were not communicating with each other. They were inspiring everyone. If you see the performance that Dorek did in When You Become Me, it's not that a wake-up call that she just woke up and decided to do that. It's been a
Yes.
journey that she has built up that.
Yes.
If now you see at sign language television and you see Dorek performing, on issues that are pertaining their fellow young people in different spaces, for us, that's the pride that we really take.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to the aspiration why we created, why we look at creative arts, is that we created a project called Sauti Plus Canvas in lockdown. And when we created it, was basically to see we are having the East African Got Talent, we are having the America Got Talent, now we're having the Voices, Africa. But persons with disabilities are not given a platform, and yet there are many that are talented. Why do you have to walk on Kampala streets? There was a famous guitarist called Chizito who had a singing impairment to perform, and is just entertaining. He's not even asking for money. but people are busy dropping coins. But that's a big talent that no one has really discovered. When you see in We Can Work, Adrian, who has a catalog of music, and he has never been discovered, with a great voice.
Yes.
But they needed a platform. So that's why we created the Sauti Plus canvas that now brought people like Adrian, brought people like the beatboxers, brought people like, what's his name? He's always singing in church communities,
It's called Philip.
Philip,
Yes.
and this was a platform that they got. And out of that, that's when we did the song of We Can Work with Kenneth Mugabe, bringing the likes of the Eddie Kenzos and other artists that really came on board. And looking on the journey that also we're moving with them. And also we're looking forward for the next edition of the Sauti Plus canvas that we hope is going to be even bigger and better. So even in film, it is something that we are looking at. Even I'm happy that even in our new project Sabotage, we have considered highly person with disabilities. And also the directors coming on board is something that also they are looking at in terms of having person with disabilities. So for us, it's not only creating role modelship, it's about moving the journey and also inspiring other institutions to not only look at sympathizing, but look at building talent, building professionalism, and also building career for person with disabilities. I'm even happy that Richard Hand in the LSS recruitment finance department, we are having a person with a hearing impairment, and it's a task for the whole team now to learn how to communicate with him.
Yes.
And is in a place whereby controlling money, you have to learn the language.
Yes.
So you see, that's what we are doing in terms of for us building and empowering young people in different spaces and looking beyond where everyone cannot see. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Humphrey. To be honest, Richer Hand is a model organization when it comes to giving opportunities to young people with disabilities. And to me, over time, I've witnessed and seen a lot of young people with disabilities grow through the different opportunities that Richer Hand Uganda is providing to the young persons with disabilities. So Humphrey talked about giving a platform to young people with disabilities. So over to you, Doric. You are a peer educator at Richer Hand, and we have seen you grow through different spaces when it comes to the performing arts, when it comes to the film industry, and you also featured as one of the main cast members in the When You Become Me feature film. So I would like you to briefly share with us how has your experience been in the entertainment industry, especially as a young person with a disability?
Thank you so much. Truly, my experience as an actress in the performing arts industry, it has really been so amazing. It has been so amazing. It was my first time to be in a movie. Like When You Become Me was my first movie that I featured in. I felt like When You Become Me, it was challenging to me, but when I went into the movie itself and I started acting, I really learned a lot because it has really added value onto my abilities. It has truly added value onto my abilities. It's very important for me. So it means that these industries, the performing arts industries, should have full inclusion, really. We should have full inclusion. Any person with disabilities, because some of them feel like people with disabilities cannot do anything. But seriously, I'm a live example, and I really struggled so much, and I did my best to show to the people that we can do something. We are able. So people with disabilities must always be included in each and everything because it really adds value to their abilities. So like we should get like that. But for example, people think have negative attitudes, but these when you include us into such ventures, we really sensitize people and take away their negative attitudes. We really are thirsting a needful inclusion in each and every venture, more so the performing art industries. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Dorek. So there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent among persons with disabilities. So what we need to do is to just tap the untapped potential. There's a lot of potential, and we need to give persons with disabilities that platform, to showcase their abilities. Yeah. So, to our dear listeners, to our viewers, don't forget we are on SoundCloud, and please remember to follow us. We are the Sauti Plus podcast on SoundCloud. We have amazing content around sexual reproductive health, around mental health, and disability inclusion, and other amazing topics. Yes. So, to you, Emily. Light for the World is an organization of persons with disabilities, and there is a lot of work that you are doing around inclusion of persons with disabilities. And their audiences, they're watching, and maybe they want to learn, or they want, how can they be a part of the inclusion journey. So my question to you is, what do you think audiences can do, or other entities, what role can they play in supporting disability inclusion in the performing arts?
Well, first of all, when you talk about disability inclusion, the thing is inclusion, and it starts with the self. It starts with all of us. So in this case, we are talking about different audiences. In this case here, if we have like our partners, what are some of the things that we do to make sure that they also understand what disability inclusion is? Educate yourself. It begins with ourselves. We have to educate ourselves. What is disability inclusion? What are the barriers to including people with disabilities in these different spaces? Because you see, sometimes we think it's difficult, but it's because we are just not aware of the barriers. The barriers are what make it difficult for us to make sure that we are walking the talk on disability inclusion. So it's about taking those necessary steps, like create those safe spaces for people with disabilities to also express themselves. Like we say here in the feature film, be intentional. Create those scenes that I don't want someone to come, someone who can hear, to take up the space of someone who has a hearing impairment, and yet I have someone with a hearing impairment who can still play this part. Then also, some of the other things we do is educating. At Light for the World, we do work with a disability inclusion facilitators model. What is this? This is still us walking the talk. Under our programming, we work with DIFs. We call them DIFs. Those are disability inclusion facilitators, like Dorek herself is. So these are people with disabilities that we take through a 6 months academy. It's a disability inclusion academy. And they are taught, they are taken through, they're even mentored still by people with disabilities on how to approach different organizations, different spaces to educate each and every person about disabilities and inclusion. You might think you know, but wait when you talk to someone living with a disability, and you'll realize that there's so much that you don't know and you need to educate yourself with, even starting with the language. So in this case, is as a recipient of some of this information as a consumer, you have to put yourself in the consumer's shoes. So what might they not know? So how do I educate them? This is how the DIFs come through of, if you think this is what disability is, let me show you that it's more about the barriers and how you as an individual can address them to make sure that we walk the talk and we are one. So in this case, there's, yes, the education that we do through our DIF model.
Maybe just to cut you short,
Yes.
to someone who is listening to us out there, who is a DIF? Someone may be wondering.
A DIF is a disability inclusion facilitator. And this is an individual with a disability that has gone through a 6 months training and mentorship under the Disability Inclusion Academy,
Yes.
which is run by Light for the World.
Yes.
So what these people do as a DIF, your role is to make sure that you are an advocate for inclusion because you have lived it. You have lived I'll say this space, you've seen the negations that come with, the impact, the negative impact that comes with living with a disability. But you have made it, and you see there are ways that we can make it. Why? Because unfortunately, not knowing, I wouldn't like to use the term ignorance, but many people do not know that they don't know until they are educated enough. So with the DIF, what they do is approach organizations, companies, even different individuals and entities, and educate them about disability, what barriers are, and how they as individuals and even as organizations can create these safe spaces for people with disabilities to live their full potential, because we have seen it. It has worked in so many organizations. We have, through this model, we have been able to even work with several companies, and we have the Uganda Business Disability Network, which is a charter where different organizations and companies sign on to, and I'll say it's more like a pledge. It's a pledge for them to walk the talk on being disability inclusive. In other words, as an organization, you talk about inclusion. Are you aware of the barriers that you have in your workplace that will impede someone, let's say, with a physical disability? Can they access you? Have you placed the ramp right there? If someone with a hearing impairment comes in, do you know where you can even source for a sign language interpreter? Because these barriers can actually be addressed, but that's if we are aware of them. So as the audiences, what they can do is educate themselves, but also embrace the knowledge that comes to them from people with disabilities about how they can make it all better. And that is why I'll take it back to even when you become me. You'll see these different interactions, people with and without disabilities. It's until you know that this is how I have to address someone or even maybe talk to them, that, they are people first before they are the disability. Once we work with that and we learn, that is, I'll say, an avenue to it opens doors for us and to see the potential that we all have. I would say that's the role that we all have to play as audiences. Yes.
Thank you very much, Emily. That was very insightful. So you speak about the interventions that audiences can do. So I'll come to you, Humphrey. So what more do you think can be done in the performing arts space to ensure that persons with disabilities are not left behind?
I think what more needs to be done is to intentionally advertise and advertise roles to groups and societies in the communities where we can interest persons with disabilities to apply. To intentional, I'm looking at intentional because we are, as in the creative industry, let's stop using an excuse that we put out an advert and no one really applied. So if we really want persons with disabilities, let's also intentionally, involve them. If I've seen Derek in When You Become Me,
Yes.
I think I should be like, hey, Derek, I have a role in Sabotage. Are you really interested? That's his intentional reaching out. So let's do that. And also, this is something I've told most producers and directors, that it's high time that we intentionally now advertise for persons with disabilities for us to walk the talk.
Yes.
So that's what needs to be done. And also to the other side of persons living with disabilities, let's also now, groom our talents. Let's not look at being sympathized and being involved even where necessary we shouldn't be. So let's take it also upon ourselves that we should now groom ourselves. We should be talented in different fields. We should also promote ourselves.
Yes.
Because if you promote yourself as an actress or as an actor or as a musician, then people are going to also reach out to you. So it's a two-way thing. Let's help each other, help yourself. Also, we help ourselves and we meet in the middle. So that's what I feel like should really be done.
Okay.
In different ways. At least, even if it's an unemployment sector, apply as many, in very many spaces as possible. Reach out in very many spaces as possible. So don't give up. And also in life, it's not about giving up. Yes.
Humphrey actually shares something very important when it comes to persons with disabilities. I know there is a lot of stigma with that comes around having a disability. But as persons with disabilities out there, those who are watching us, those who are listening to us, let's not play the sympathy card. Yes, let's not play the sympathy card, because we all have different capabilities and we are able. We have the potential. So let's work on improving or bettering ourselves, so that we are qualified in the market, because the market is also looking for people who are qualified. Yes. So we need to work on improving on ourselves, becoming the better versions of ourselves. Yes.
And also that said, Victoria,
Yes.
we are living in a competitive,
Sure.
sympathetic community.
Sure.
Even we have poor communities. They are also with disabilities of poverty.
Oh, yes.
They're also being sympathized, and also they
Yes.
are looking for that space as well to be sympathized.
Yes.
We're looking in a community where it's full of diseases, like we have HIV that never heals. We have all those. It's a minority, like we call it, more of a minority group that is also seeking for sympathy, seeking for opportunities, is seeking for all these spaces to be occupied. But the spaces are going to accommodate those people. For example, our finance officer now who's employed, he has gone to school, he has studied, he has done SCCA, he has fought for himself. So he deserves the job.
Sure.
So let's look at those opportunities that in every space you want to go to, whether you're a person with disabilities, no disabilities, we're all the same. So we have to compete equally.
Yes.
And also to be treated equally.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Humphrey. So we are actually 30 minutes down our podcast. To our dear listeners and our viewers, remember, this is the Sauti podcast. Let's go for a short break. We shall be back. Please don't touch the dial and keep locked.
What ignites your passion? What fuels your ambition? What drives you to succeed? Whatever the reason is, you need a companion with you to tell you that your dreams are valid, to fuel your passion and inspire you to learn every single day. Introducing the new age Sauti Plus TV, a fresh, easily accessible, and content-packed platform for young people. A companion like no other to give you accurate and reliable information and guide you in making the right choices and take the right direction. A companion to open you to a Pan-African cinematic experience to help make sense of the world around you. A mobile companion that goes easy on your wallet and sticks with you all the way. Sauti Plus TV, your #1 source for shows that matter, anywhere, anytime. Download the Sauti Plus app on the App Store and Google Play Store, or head to www.sautiplus.org.
Who are we? We are that far-reaching hand, going deep to the front lines to achieve continuous breakthroughs, simplifying health information, and bridging the information gaps in communities. We are transformers, transforming lives with a strong belief that young people have the power to create a better future for themselves. We don't only have a strategy, we have a purpose to build and empower young people through our programs. Taking advantage of new trends and opportunities to respond to the health needs of all young people. We don't only have a vision statement, we have a vision of a world of young people making right, informed life choices. We are not just a youth-centered organization, we are champions of an informed and empowered generation. Champions with promise to keep building systems that empower and improve livelihoods, health, and the quality of life for different communities, most especially young people. This is who we are. We are young people for young people. We are Reach a Hand, Uganda. We are 10 and bold.
Wow.
Listen.
I'm not your child when you can beat up anytime you feel like it.
This is equality.
Welcome back, our dear listeners and our viewers. Remember, this is the Sauti podcast, and this particular edition, we are talking about disability inclusion and the performing arts. And this particular episode is brought to you by Sauti Plus in partnership with Reach a Hand Uganda and Light for the World. So, back to our topic, disability inclusion in the arts. So, Emily, how important is representation of persons with disabilities in the creative industry? Why do you think it matters anyway?
Thank you, Vicky. So, how important is it? It's very important. It's really crucial.
Yes.
Because, again, this is one thing that I keep saying, and I'll say I learned myself. It's the person before the disability. So, these are people, and we all seek representation, regardless. So, it is very important. And just to answer the next bit of why does it matter? Because this is, it brings it, I'll say it's also a source of visibility, this representation. It puts a face, you get, to the visibility. It's also in this visibility, someone with a disability who didn't know that they could do it, they end up, getting that potential, I'll say the I'll say it's churned in them, a craft is churned in them, and they know, you know what, if I see someone with a disability on the big screen, I can also do it. So it also brings out the aspect of role modeling. Because if we have people with disabilities taking up these spaces and their roles, then they are also role models to those young people whose minds we are still trying to, to craft and shift and tell them, you're more than enough. You're more than your disability. So seeing such people, on the big screen, such representation, I'll say, on the big screen, is very vital. And then I think it also plays into the bit of authenticity. Because if I have, you'll hear about all these movies, being acted, and even for When You Become Me, my sister watched the trailer and she asked me, is that lady really, I saw people signing, like, is she really deaf or are they acting it out? Like, how did she learn how to sign? And then she saw, Liam walking with a stick, and she asked me, like, are these people really, do they really have those disabilities? And when I told her they actually do, we were intentional about seeking them out. She was in shock. And she was actually, I'll say it was that happy shock of, okay, this is new. I like that people are really intentional about creating that space for people with disabilities to also bring out their capabilities.
Yes.
So it's a very important aspect, and it's a role that we all have to play. We all can do it. We can all be inclusive. If we would say we are inclusive, then we have to walk that talk. And how? Just learn what you can do, because we can all do something to create these spaces, not out of pity, but because we know that people with disabilities can also do what we are doing. We people who do not have the disabilities. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Emily. So, back to you, Doric. being an actress, a number of young people with disabilities are looking up to you, or want to be like you. So what advice would you give to someone with a disability who is interested in joining the performing arts?
Wow. Before I advise the youth, I would like to first give a vote of thanks to Reach a Hand and Light for the World for really coming up with this movie, this project for When You Become Me. It was sensitizing other people, and it opened up their minds, and they got to know the different things, and they got to see their own journey. Maybe they thought it's maybe people with disabilities live by mercy, having mercy on them, or so it has changed their thoughts, and so it helped to sensitize the people. And I personally would like to advise the youth out there, you should always have self-esteem. Have self-esteem. People with disabilities must have self-esteem. Some of you feel like, I cannot do that. I cannot do that. How will I do it? But why? You see, Dorek, I'm here. I did it. And it's an example. I believed in myself. You should have self-esteem. Secondly, you should always believe in yourself that you can do anything. Being a disability, you can do anything. You can be in the performing arts too, being disabled. So it's very important for us to also know that if you believe in yourself, any industry or any performing arts industry can say, oh yeah, the people with disabilities can also do it. They can do that. So they will desire and really want to have an actor or actress who is disabled like they did to me. So thirdly, I would like to encourage and mobilize. I would like to mobilize people with disabilities. When there are opportunities out there to act in the performing arts, please take up the roles. So they mostly mobilize people. I would like to mobilize people to wake up. The performing arts industry needs us, people with disabilities, and they need us in different activities. The acting, we should take up different roles. That's why I would like to advise the young people out there. Please, those 3 points are really key in our lives. So you should show who you are. Show yourself out there. Show who you are. Some of you feel like, no, me, I can't. But seriously, I'm very happy because Reach a Hand appointed a deaf person to work here. I'm so proud of myself. I'm so proud of being deaf. I'm like, wow, I've never had it before. And I'm so happy to hear this good news. So what does it mean to us? People with disabilities out there, you should see this. You shouldn't see something and say, I can't do it. Please never and never forget the points I've given you. And there is a point of leave no one behind. Leave no one behind. So you should always remember, it's very key for us, the young people and everyone out there. Secondly, we should always remember that we are able. We are able. So no, people with disabilities are really able. You should never think that any barriers, any obstacles, challenges, you should put them down. You should you should accommodate yourself and be like, yeah, I accept I'm deaf. And you be like, if they appoint me as a deaf, how will I work? There's going to be an interpreter. We know that deaf people need interpreters, or that disabled people need personal assistants, the blind, and everyone. We know all those things. Do not think about the barriers. It's very key to keep in your mind that you are able, and you need to open up your minds and think. You need to open up your mindsets and change your mindsets. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you very much, Doric. You share wonderful insights there. So, to our dear listeners, or our viewers, so something that I pick from what Doric says is, as a person with a disability, you need to put your mind to something. You need to believe that you are able. And once you believe that you are able and you can do something, please go ahead and do it. Don't limit yourself. Do not self-sabotage. From a personal experience, being a person with a disability myself, I did not believe that at some point I could be able to get behind the wheel and drive. Yeah, but it's all about believing. Yeah, believing and um, telling yourself that you are able. Yeah, and these things can happen. So let's not self-sabotage. Let's not limit ourselves, because there is a lot that we can do. So just to finalize with you, Humphrey, so what is Rahul's message to development partners or to the CSOs when it comes to disability inclusion?
My message to different CSOs is that let's walk the talk. I mean, I've been in so many conferences and workshops, and there's always that one hand that says, where are the person with disabilities?
Yes.
How are they really included? And sometimes I look who has asked them and I scan where they're working from, and there's no person with disabilities.
Yes.
So before they come for conferences and workshops, uh, I believe let's start walk the talk. If you're going to advocate,
Yes.
strong advocacy means not leaving anyone behind. That's what they call strong advocacy. So if you want to advocate for young mothers, also advocate for young mothers with disabilities. If you're advocating for persons living with HIV, also advocate for persons living with HIV with disabilities.
Yes,
If you're
absolutely.
advocating for whatever spaces you're advocating from, as CSOs, as government entities, let's have persons with disabilities being catered for and also given a lot of priority in whatever we're doing. Let's do what we can so that we can now be accountable tomorrow. And the persons with disabilities as well can be more accountable tomorrow because they've been given space where they can exercise and be included in different spaces.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Humphrey. So we have come to the end of our podcast today. And just key to note to people listening or people viewing us there, let us be very intentional when it comes to including persons with disabilities. And also to persons with disabilities, let us not play the sympathy card. Let us work on improving ourselves. Let us become sellable or marketable in the market, because employers or anyone who wants you to do something is looking for someone who can do the best for themselves or the best out of themselves. So remember, this is the Sauti Plus podcast, and please follow us on SoundCloud. We are the Sauti Plus podcast. And to our dear guests today, our dear panelists, thank you very much for making time to come and have this insightful conversation on disability inclusion in the performing arts. Thank you very much, and bye. See you next time.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Vicky.